For this April Fool's, I'm covering H-45, a World War II German battleship that never was. So, what's special about it? Well, a few things. First off, it was designed to carry 8 of the 80cm 31.5-inch Schwer-Gustav gun in 4 dual turrets, giving it the heaviest broadside of any battleship ever designed or constructed, though whether or not this would actually be effective is another matter that I'll bring up later. Secondly, the displacement was designed at 700,000 tons. This means that it would be the largest ship ever constructed had it been built, beating every other ship even today. And lastly, it was never actually considered for construction or even designed by Germany in the first place. That's right, H-45 is a complete and total fabrication from the internet, not an actual German design from World War II. The story behind how this happened can actually be found in the talk page for the H-class battleship proposals on Wikipedia. Originally, the design was made up on PHP BB Planet as a concept for what it would take for a battleship to carry the 80cm Schwer-Gustav gun. The post states, "I am the one who made H-45 up. It was a ship of 700,000 tons, based on an engineer's estimates of a vessel capable of carrying 4x2 80cm guns, a heavy AA armament of 8 24cm guns, the Kriegsmarine was developing such a gun for land use at the end of the war, and numerous 12.8cm flak and enclosed mounts. I made a drawing of the ship and placed it on the site, but I assure you, it was entirely imaginary. The links have deprecated since this was posted and don't work anymore, but it does seem to be correct." The only source for H-45 existing is David Porter's World War II databook, Hitler's Secret Weapons 1933 to 1945, with other sources either citing that book or being a direct copy of the Wikipedia page before H-45 was removed from it for being fake. Now, this isn't to say that there was never a study into the idea of a battleship armed with the Gustav gun, just that H-45 specifically did not actually exist as a design. If anything, trying to come up with some kind of irrational battleship that would carry an 80cm gun sounds exactly like something that Germany would do late in the war, but if they did, it wasn't this one. So, H-45 doesn't exist. However, that's not going to stop me from analyzing the design as if it did. It can be a bit difficult to actually examine H-45 as there's no real official design spec for it. However, that also conveniently means that being wrong is just as correct as being right. It's effectively the design of Bismarck, but greatly scaled up to the point where it could carry the 80cm Schwer-Gustav cannon. The weight would come to 700,000 tons, with a rough length of 610 meters, a beam of 91 meters, and a draft of 17 meters. The top speed would be 28 knots. The primary armament would be 8 80cm Schwer-Gustav cannons and 4 dual turrets with a layout similar to that of Bismarck, 2 in a superfiring pair forward and 2 in a superfiring pair aft. For secondary weaponry, 8 24cm cannons, 24 12.8cm cannons, and various 5.5cm AA cannons. Neither the 24cm nor 5.5cm cannons were fully developed anti-air weapons. The 24cm would presumably be based off the Canone 3, another siege gun, and the 5.5cm was a prototype anti-air gun developed towards the end of World War II. As for the armor, that comes up to 380mm for the deck and belt, 660mm for the turrets, and 630mm for the conning tower. Most of this would be about what's expected from such a large design, though I do think it's worth elaborating on those 80cm cannons a bit more. The Schwer-Gustav is estimated to have a reload time of roughly 30 to 45 minutes, and it's unlikely that a turreted version would be faster. If anything, it might be even slower. Speaking of the turret, between 2 Gustav guns and 660mm of armor, it would be excruciatingly slow to rotate. If anything, it would probably be faster to turn the whole ship, rather than the guns themselves. An HE shell from this cannon has 700 kilograms of explosive filler, so a bit more than a German SC-1000 bomb. This means that it would likely cripple or destroy any ship that it managed to hit. However, the long reload means that this would need to be done in the first salvo. That's not very likely, considering World War II first salvo accuracy wasn't great, and by the time the guns have reloaded, the target would have done multiple course corrections and speed changes to make the targeting info useless. Near misses could still damage a target, but there's a very real chance that all 8 shells could whiff, even if staggered, and leave the ship open up to attack for around an hour. Now, on to trying to grasp how a ship this large would actually do if one somehow existed. There's no way Germany could have constructed one alone, and no country on the world could make a ship this large in any reasonable period of time. Even if the entire world had been working together to build a 700,000-ton battleship, it still would have taken a long time to even build a dock capable of constructing something that large with World War II technology. So, for this, let's just assume that one of these ships magically popped into existence in the early 1940s, and Germany somehow has the crew and supply to use it. The first answer is obvious: it would get bombed a lot. H-45 would be the best bomb testing platform that the British could ask for, and it would be practically impossible to hide or camouflage. It would be able to survive a lot more firepower than a normal battleship, but there's no way that it could withstand the kind of beating the Allies would put into it over a long period of time. Something like a Grand Slam or Tallboy bomb would devastate H-45, like how Tallboy bombs were used to sink Tirpitz. One can only imagine that if a bomb were to hit near the magazines, it would probably cause a massive explosion that could tear the ship in two. It would also be extremely difficult to repair any kind of damage, so any crippling damage would probably be the end of its career. The ship would be stuck in port, and before it could be repaired, it would be subject to multiple bombing raids that would put it right back down again. Submarines would also be a problem too. A ship this large would be easy to spot and difficult to miss a torpedo salvo against, and while it wouldn't simply sink from a few torpedoes, it would likely cause significant damage to the hull that would again be difficult to repair. Surprisingly, surface ships could also be a threat to H-45. Destroyers would have an unmissable target for their torpedoes, and with the 30 to 45 minute reload, or longer for the main guns, and the secondaries being designed primarily for anti-air duties, even battleships could threaten it, considering how difficult it would be to hit with just a single salvo. Anything from a top-of-the-line late World War II battleship to a shortly post-World War I battleship could continually fire into the H-45 as it reloads, causing flooding and gradually damaging the armor. It's again not a case where this would outright destroy the ship, so much as gradually cripple it further and further due to the sheer difficulty of repairing something so large and unwieldy. H-45's biggest strength would likely be how much of a pain it is for any country dealing with it, like how Tirpitz was a notable problem for the British, even without being in combat. The amount of resources dedicated to taking such a ship down would be pretty immense, and while it would certainly be a net loss for Germany, it would at least tie up a lot of British resources until it was destroyed. It would also be great for bombarding massive targets, like cities or ports, due to the sheer size and power of the guns along with the ship being far enough away to avoid getting fired back at directly. But overall, H-45 would just be an extremely poor ship with many exploitable weaknesses. It's completely illogical to create a battleship about 10 times larger than anything else of the war, and that holds up with Germany never actually designing this. Even with the craziness of some of Germany's late World War II designs, this is just on another level. It's the kind of thing that even they wouldn't come up with, which is why it had to be made up online so many years later, just as a little study for how absurd something like this would be. The most interesting part of this ship for me is how people think it's somehow a real design from World War II. It shows just how easily misinformation can propagate, only taking one historian believing it to create a cascade effect that makes others believe it too, even with zero historical backing. There's also the aspect of Germany's reputation. They had so many strange designs around the end of the war that something like H-45 is almost believable. When there's a country that's actually considered a 188-ton tank or a plane with a 356mm recoilless rifle, something like a 700,000-ton battleship seems like just another crazy design to add to the pile. But, real or not, H-45 would certainly be a flop. Thank you for watching.